going to make some calzones. It's been a month or so since I made them, and I'm just figuring this thing out. It turned out really good the first few times I did it. So I have here a jar of home canned pork from Big Strange New Brunswick Brew 2008. We had a suckling pig, and come Sunday morning there was still a fair bit of pig left, and nobody wanted the leftovers, no locals. So I cut the head off. That was too big to fit in my cooler, although I would have liked to take it too because there's a lot of meat on the head. I cut the head off, packed the rest of it into my cooler with a bunch of ice, and we drove the family back to Ottawa with that and 2 turkey carcasses. Got a crap load of meat off the pig anyway. I think it was like 4 of these jars plus 4 pounds in the freezer. So the first thing I'm going to do here is I am going to skim as much of that fat off the top as I can, and that'll get saved obviously because it's good fat, but I don't want it. I want to control exactly how much I'm using in my calzones, so I'll just take out as much as I can here. Can't remember the last time I opened one of these jars. Make sure I'm not getting any meat in there. There actually looks to be more fat than there really is. It goes down far along the sides, but doesn't go down into the middle really. Alright, that's good enough. We will want some fat in the calzones, so I want to drain this. So I just have a canning funnel and a thingamajig there, and another mason jar, and give that some encouragement. It's still cold. It was in the basement, so it's at basement temperature. I'm just going to let that drain for 10 minutes or so. I'll stick it back over there where it will be out of the way and it won't get knocked over when the munchkins get home from school shortly, and we'll show you what happens next. So we got the meat out, we got the empty jar there, we got the fat, and we got the broth. What I'm going to do now is we're going to go over to the stove. I'm going to make a roux out of the fat and some of the broth anyway, and I may need a little bit more fat than this actually, but that's okay. I have lots in the fridge from other pork. Alright, we're over at the stove and we're going to make our roux. What the heck is that? Well, it's a mixture. You take fat, you melt it, you put some flour in, you blend it all together so it's like a uniform blob, and then you start diluting it with water or broth. In our case we're going to dilute it with some of the broth from our pork. So I have this on 3, which I find is a good temperature on my stove. It doesn't burn things, generally speaking. I put the fat in there. There's a little bit of meat in that fat. I'm not going to worry about it. It's not going to ruin my roux, I don't think. I've done that before. There's just little wee shreds of it in there. I'm not too concerned. Alright, so melting fat, we need to add some flour, just white flour. I'm using organic, you can use whatever. You can mix with one of these or one of these. Do I have a preference? I don't know. I sometimes use one, sometimes use the other. We're going to melt that in there. I may not. I have some extra fat here in case I need it, but just looking here, I don't think I am going to need it actually. I should be okay. Let's see. Oh, maybe I'll get a spoonful of the other stuff. Just for kicks and giggles, I'll put a bit of this. This is pork and chicken fat mixed. I'll put a little bit, just to give it a little bit more flavor complexity, the chicken fat content of it. And so it's just melting up in there. It's colored because of the stuff from the mason jar. And basically, now if you want to get fancy, you can sift your flour into there. I generally don't. I sometimes do. And you just stir it up like that. It starts like this, but you want it into a blob. So you add your flour kind of slowly, not too much at a time, until it blobs. Now it's starting to get into a blob there. Get my heat up to a little bit over 3. Now it's starting to blob. It's doing pretty good. There, so that's pretty good consistency. And now what you want to do, once you get to that point, I'm just going to let that heaten up a little bit more. Another couple of seconds. Once you get to that point, you start adding that. You see there's some fat in my broth here. I'm not too concerned about that. You add this a little bit at a time to get it dissolved. Make sure it dissolves properly. This is going to make a sauce to thicken, basically make a thick sauce. If you want it to, you can also use cornstarch in place of the flour. I might actually, no I won't. So you can see that's starting to thicken. It's got to boil a little bit to thicken. So I'm thinking maybe turning that up to 4 for the moment. In order to thicken this, I don't know what the actual, if it's a physical reaction, I guess it would be a physical reaction in the starches. Something about the boiling activates them and makes it thicken. I guess it gelatinizes the starches is probably what's going on. I should know that from my brewing. So that's going to take some more. I'm actually going to get some cornstarch. Alright, just for kicks and giggles, I'm going to add about a tablespoon of cornstarch in there. I normally don't know why I did just now. That's a bad way to do it because it might end up being lumpy. I should have put that in at the beginning with the roux. There's less chance of, that's why you make the roux, because the starches dissolve more evenly into the fat than they do into the liquid, into the water rather. So there's a higher chance of getting lumps if you just do what I just did there. So we're getting that consistency now, but it still hasn't really started to boil. I'm going to add more of this. And if I don't end up using all of this, it's basically going to be like a thick gravy or a sauce. If I don't end up using all of that for my calzone stuff, then I can just stick it in the fridge, use it on other stuff. It'll be a good sauce or gravy. Now that last addition, it's basically a thin liquid again. Still not coming to the boil, so I'm going to put this up to 5. See what I can get out of this guy. Oops.